Hi there, I'm Eric Wordweaver Sjerven, Goatee of the Ridgar folk here in East Texas, and I would like to welcome you to Raving Reviews. This is a show where I review different media from a heathen standpoint and kind of turn you guys onto some hidden gems, look for heathen virtues and values where you might not normally look to see them, and in some ways just kind of shine some light on some things in my particular view and how I see things. So, we go everything from movies to books to comics to video games. It all depends. Now, we're going to do another video game on this one, guys, and this is a blast from the past. I loved this game, and it killed me that they did not do more of them, okay? And this is called Too Human. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. It was put out by Silicon Knights, and it's an action role-play game. It was developed by, like I said, Silicon Knights, and published by Microsoft Studios for the Xbox 360 back in 2008. This game, wow. This particular game is crazy. I'm going to talk a little bit about what it is and then a little bit about what happened to it. Because some of you may have already played it since it is an older game and have wondered over the years why we didn't see any more. Well, I'm about to tell you. Okay. So Too Human is essentially a retelling of select stories that are inspired by the Eddas and Norse mythology. I'm not going to say that they took them from them because they're not faithful retellings. They are stylized. They are their own kind of take on things. They pull some from the Eddas and some from Beowulf. There's some heavy Beowulf references in there too. So they pull from some lore base and take a unique spin on it. It's really kind of neat. You play as Balder, which is kind of cool to begin with. You get to play as one of the gods. Now, this is a fascinating thing. The gods are... What makes them godlike is that they are cybernetically enhanced. So they have their god powers, which are these technological advances that make them above and beyond the humans, as it were. So there's this kind of division between the cybernetically enhanced and the not. And the whole idea behind your play is you make choices as you go along. You choose what you level up. You choose what you don't. You also choose what your specialization is to a certain extent. It is limited by the style of the game and things like that. It's not like you've got, I'm going to be a mage, I'm going to be a wizard, but you're all fighter based, but it depends on kind of where you go with it skill tree wise and how you kind of build out your character. And through that, certain things are going to be the more god side and the more human side. And the more god side, of course, incorporates more and more cybernetic enhancements. The human side are natural enhancements of the physical body kind of thing. So it's that it uses the Aesir versus human element to kind of go an Isaac Asimov robot versus human route and explore what is kind of tropey in some elements, but from a unique perspective. It's kind of an entertaining take on things. I liked seeing some of the representations that they used for the different gods. Now, you're the Aesir and you're going up against Loki and his army of machines. And so it's kind of a Matrix-like element there. The idea being that it mirrors somewhat Ragnarok and that you are playing through the fall of the gods, but you are playing through the fall of the gods as Balder, which doesn't really jive with the whole mythology element of things. They might have explored some of that later on, but they would never get the chance, and we'll talk about why here in just a second. Now, what was interesting about this particular game is that it came out in 2008, like I said, to middling reviews. And part of the reason that it got middling reviews is because the frame rate wasn't so great. Graphically, it was okay. You know, it wasn't a stunning game. You know, if you watched my review on Jotun, that's a beautiful game. Very fluid, very beautiful game. This game, not so much. It was fun, and it was neat. It was kind of original in the way that it did things, but it wasn't exactly beautiful. And gameplay-wise, frame rate dropping made it kind of choppy at times, made it a little bit more difficult to play through. Now, back in the days of the 360 and whatnot, we were a little more forgiving of frame rate drops. It's not like we were, rocking the 60 frames per second like we are in a lot of things now. But frame rate drops back then were a little bit more noticeable too because you weren't working with as wide a margin. So, it's a thing. Anyway, another part of it was it had a weird control scheme. Unlike most action RPGs where you push a direction and then you choose your attack by which button you hit, this used the dual stick control kind of thing. It was kind of like a dual stick shooter in that you would use the left stick to control your direction, and then you would use the right stick to control your attack vector. The only problem is you're a melee character, and what you'll do is you'll run around using the left stick, and then when you get in range of the enemies, you'll push your right stick in the direction of whatever enemy it was you want to attack, and then Baldur would dash out and attack that enemy.
Okay, real quick, I forgot when I was filming this originally, there are gunning sections in this game too. You have a dual capacity as far as your weapons go. You have melee mode, which uses the right stick, and then you've got a more traditional kind of Gears of War shooting system. So there's that.
Very, very different in as far as this style of game goes. Not the kind of thing that you typically see in a game. There are other games that would incorporate this kind of play style later on to better effect. But as far as this one goes, I was one of the earlier ones to explore this, and so it wasn't extremely well received. The storytelling is a bit contrived. It's a bit janky in spots. The control scheme was very janky. But once you got the hang of it, once you learned how it worked and got decent at it, the game itself was a lot of fun. I loved playing through it. I loved seeing the story. I loved seeing where this was going to go. And you play through, and one of the early things that you do is the whole Beowulf Grendel kind of deal. And so you go off and you fight this huge cybernetic monster and whatnot. Keep in mind, it's been, it's been like 10 years since I've played the game, so I don't remember all of the details very well from my first playthrough. But I do remember the heavy focus on the Beowulf side of things early on. Then you get into some of the more mythological-based stuff. You see Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent, which actually ends up being a play realm because it's this giant cybernetic, almost world ship kind of thing that's burrowing through. It was kind of neat. It was fascinating, and so you're kind of playing through towards taking down Jormungandr. And Thor makes an appearance in there, and he's this big, burly, cybernetic out, very cyberpunk kind of. It's Aesir meets cyberpunk. It's really kind of neat. And so you're fighting through, and the problem is it comes to kind of a cliffhanger. Do not expect closure if you happen to get your hands on this game and can play it through to completion. It's not done. It was originally intended to be a trilogy, and it leaves off in very cliffhangery kind of point, which is good if you're expecting episodic game and you get an episodic game. But they didn't necessarily have the hang of episodic games back then as like they do now. And so release schedule was going to put it at a later kind of release date anyway. So when you finish the game, even if they had gotten to rock through with their original plan, the gap between games was still going to leave a lot of people with kind of a bitter taste in their mouth, simply because the cliffhanger was... I remember hitting the end of that going, really? That's all? I want more. Because I did want more. You get to run around Asgard and see the other gods, tweak your character out how you want to, and that's where the name Too Human comes along, by the way. Baldur is less cybernetically enhanced than the other gods, so he's seen as being too human. And then, of course, you choose your side as you go along and choose your enhancements. So, let's talk a little bit, we talked a little bit about the gameplay, why it wasn't that great, but the idea behind it, the concept behind it was neat. It was an interesting retelling of the stories, and artistically, it was okay. I mean, it wasn't nothing to write home about necessarily. I enjoyed it stylistically because I liked kind of this weird amalgamation of Norse mythology and cyberpunk. It was neat. It was innovative. It was different. Let's talk about what happened to this game, because you will never see the second game, I don't believe. Probably not, anyway. It's entirely possible, but we'll get to that here in a little bit. I doubt it. Let's see what happened, all right? This game initially was set to come out in 1999 on the Sony PlayStation. It was stuck in development hell forever. 10 years in development hell. It was basically vaporware there for a little bit. Anyway, it was originally going to be out on the Sony PlayStation, and then it shifted in about the year 2000 to the Nintendo GameCube. And they were going to put it on the GameCube, which I don't see this game working as well on the GameCube. Loved my GameCube, but this just didn't feel like the place for it. It was later sold in 2005 to Microsoft, and Microsoft picked up the distribution and publication for it and everything, and it became an Xbox 360 exclusive game at that point in time. Now, I still have a physical copy of this hiding somewhere, but you're probably not going to find a copy of it easily accessible. You will find some floating around because those physical copies that came out initially still exist, but they stopped production on it. And they shut down any plans on making another one. And here's why. The studio, Silicon Knights, got in a huge amount of trouble with Unreal Engine 3. It's Epic Games is the one that puts out Unreal Engine 3. And they used Unreal Engine 3 to build the game, which is obvious when you play through the game. It plays like every other Unreal 3 game that you've played, as far as the overall world building, character design, things like that. You know, you can tell it's an Unreal game, which is a good thing. Unreal's a great system. Love Unreal. I love that engine, and I enjoyed a lot of games that were built on Unreal 3. It was a great time in gaming for Unreal as an engine. Now, the problem is they used a stolen version, or an illegal hacked version of Unreal 3. They didn't pay for it. And as a result, they got taken to court. And the courts ruled in favor of Epic to the tune of $4.45 million. $4.45 million. And Silicon Knights had to destroy all of their gaming that used Unreal 3. They had to just completely tank 2 Human, couldn't create any more of it, destroy all copies that they currently had, couldn't sell any of the ones that they still had in the warehouse, none of that. And the plans for the full-on trilogy were eventually canceled because of the damage inflicted by the lawsuit. And it ultimately culminated in Silicon Knights filing for bankruptcy on May 16th of 2014. So this game that spent 10 years in development hell, bounced through 3 separate systems, got a mediocre release, turned out to be the death of Silicon Knights, which is sad because it's innovative gameplay. It's neat. They were daring. They took some risks on this particular game. It was fun to watch them explore the storytelling in a different fashion than they had before, than anybody had before. As far as the Norse mythology aspect, in integration with cyberpunk, still don't know anybody that's explored that again like they did in this, except for some anime and things like that. But as far as video games go, I mean, there's some cutting edge stuff here as far as innovation with Norse mythology within the game systems. And so I loved this game. It was a lot of fun. It wasn't the prettiest thing in the world, no, but it was fun. It was immersive in its own right. I love Unreal Engine 3 as far as its playability and the way that it functions and everything. I dug it. I really did. I dug this game, and I really, really wanted more. But because of this, it's not gonna happen. It's not there anymore. Now, there was a resurgence on Xbox One here very, very recently. Okay, I'm pulling up an article from Polygon.com. The title of it is The Wild Story Behind a Free Xbox One Game Microsoft Announced at E3. So, it says that Microsoft announced the last batch of Xbox 360 titles to be made compatible with Xbox One. One in particular stood out, and not just because it's free. That's 2 Human. So this is one of those things where we don't know a whole lot, other than the fact that Silicon Knights isn't a thing anymore, and but still Microsoft owns a lot of what's going on there. There is some curiosity here as to whether or not this might see a resurgence for 2 Human, or where things might end up in the end. Oh, I didn't realize Silicon Knights was involved with the X-Men Destiny game too, which was also a major bust, unfortunately, and also led towards their ultimate demise. So, Epic discreetly confirmed they permitted Microsoft to release the game, but nothing further. So, ultimately speaking, I seriously doubt that this is going to lead to a resurgence of the game, but it definitely caught a lot of people's eye because it's free on Xbox One. And this was back in June of 2019 that this particular article came up. I would say that I would say get it if you can. All right. I believe Epic Games actually holds the rights to it at the moment after all of that, or at least Epic Games has some kind of sway over the release of the game and its ability because of the whole lawsuit thing. So I recommend picking it up simply because it doesn't exist anymore. The digital copies, you can't get them anymore because it was wiped from the hard drives, all that stuff. They can't put it out. Physical copies, what's in the field and live at the moment is the only thing that you can get your hands on. So if you can find a copy on the cheap for the 360, you still have one, snatch it up. I'm not going to get into the whole emulation scene and what you can do there, simply because that gets into dodgy legalities when it comes to all of that. And I'm not going to advocate one way or the other, but those of you that are in the ROM scene know what's up. So, yeah, this is kind of interesting that it's actually kind of shown back up on the Xbox One recently. You guys can check out Polygon.com for that particular article. It's worth a read. I just gave it a quick glance over while we were here. I honestly didn't even know this existed until I pulled Two Humans webpage up. Actually, I pulled up the wiki on it to remind myself of dates and whatnot. But this article popped up right as I did the search. I was like, oh, that's interesting. We should throw that in there. So if you guys are interested in it, check it out. The game is a fun game, and I highly recommend checking it out just because it's a different take on the mythology, but still told within a video game. And that's not something we get a whole lot of attention. There's a lot of things in more recent years that have given better attention to Norse mythology. But this was just kind of neat. Nobody did this, and it was kind of fun. So I really am kind of sad that Silicon Knights didn't go about it the right way with Unreal Engine, because I would like to have seen where this was going to go. I think this is a trilogy I could have gotten behind, and I loved it. I played the dog out of it, ended up buying it. I got it in on GameFly back in the day, because I actually did GameFly back in the day. I'm not sure anybody still does. But I got it in, liked it so much I bought the disc from them and kept it. Still have it in my my cabinet at the house. So I'm not letting go of that copy for obvious reasons. You can't get it anymore. So if you do happen to get lucky at one of the little resale shops or something like that, snatch it up. I wouldn't pay an exorbitant price for it, but if you find a disc on the shelf and it's $20 or something like that, 10, 15, snatch it up. It's worth it. It's a fun game. It's a lot of innovation for the day. Now it's dated. It doesn't carry as well if you look at it now. And then, of course, there's the whole Xbox One aspect. If you guys are on Xbox One and it's free download, check it out. Give it a look-see. You'll see a little moment in history of a game that you just can't get anymore. It's lost to the nether regions, just like Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which was one of the best beat-em-ups to ever exist, but because of so many licensing issues, that game can't exist anymore. And so if you still have a copy of Scott Pilgrim versus the World, do not let it go. Hang on to that sucker. There was a digital-only kind of thing, and when they got rid of it, they got rid of it. So it doesn't exist anymore. You can't really get it, aside from underground avenues. But I've been looking for a copy ever since the game came out, and I can't find another one. So I miss my copy. All right, guys, that's that for Two Human. Give it a look-see. Jump in the comments below. Let me know what you thought about this particular game, if you looked it up, if you've played it before and have your experiences, or if you've jumped on the Xbox One and grabbed it. I can't verify that it's still up there right now because I'm not on Xbox One. I'm a Switch player at the moment, and I do have a PS4, but I haven't turned it on in a while because I'm a Switch player at the moment. That's where I do all of my gaming currently, simply because of the portability aspect and the fact that I don't have time to sit down in front of a console like I used to. Back in the day, man, I was Xbox 360 all the way, PS4, love my stuff. Right now it's the Switch. That's where I get my fix. So anyway, let me know, guys. Give me some feedback. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about these videos. And if you want me to keep doing them, give me recommendations. I do look up the stuff that you recommend. If I've already seen it, I'll let you know. If I've already played it, I'll let you know. And if not, I'll either tell you why I haven't got into it, or I'll do a video on it once I find it and can kind of immerse myself in it. So thank you, guys. Appreciate the support. Hail. May your hearth fires burn bright. All right, we're going to talk about Too Human now. On with the video games. Love this stuff. All right, and we are live. Let me get a drink real quick. So good, so good, so good. All right, and we're live in 3, 2, 1. Let's jam. Hi there, I'm Eric Wordweaver Sjerven, Gothi of the Ridgar folk here in East Texas, and I would like to welcome you to Raving Reviews. It's easy for me to say, right, guys? Hey, y'all help me name it. All right, scrap that. Scrap it. And we're live in 3, 2, 1. Let's jam.